Today we're going to hear what Jesus said about Ridvan. Actually, Jesus called out from the midmost heart of heaven about his return as Baha'u'llah. And it's in Days of Remembrance, Tablet 16. It should be on the breaking news tonight, one would think. After all, Thoreau said, read not the times, read the eternities. And that's what we're going to do now. So if you don't have the hard copy, you can look at it online. Now, I think you should not download it from Ocean because the paragraphs aren't numbered. If you go to Baha'i Reference Library, the paragraphs also aren't numbered unless you download the document, then they are. And it's also available as a Kindle at Baha'i Bookstore online. So many tablets by Baha'u'llah are written in movements like a symphony. So we discussed how some of them are written in dramatic acts, but Tablet 16 in Days of Remembrance, on page 69, is written in 3 sections with a preamble. This is just my interpretation. As I've said before, we all have our own inroads into tablets, and it helps me sometimes when I'm able to see how Baha'u'llah seems to have written his longer tablets in movements. And so before we hear the breaking news in Tablet 16, there's this preamble of 3 paragraphs in which the momentousness of the day, like the red carpet you walk upon before entering the most holy shrine, or the ablutions you perform before saying the obligatory prayer, to me it's a preparatory stage. And each one of these 3 paragraphs repeats the same 2 phrases about this day, that God hath verily testified in himself and by himself. 3 times that's said in 3 different paragraphs, in himself and by himself. So we're getting a glimpse of Baha'u'llah as this perfect reflector of the full splendor of the sun, as the manifestation of God. And the first section after the preamble are paragraphs 4 through 8, in which Baha'u'llah summons all creation to recognize this day, and refers to how those of us who have recognized it in paragraph 4 have not let the human limitations deter them from recognizing it. So this reminds us once again that the age of limitations has ended on April 21st, 1863. And now we have the ability to reflect in their full magnitude all the attributes of God. But then Baha'u'llah says, in a sense, it's such a magnificent day that how can I extol it? And in paragraph 7, since we're going to be talking about Jesus, who referred to the Word of God as the bread of life, 3 times Jesus uses a food imagery for the Word of God. In paragraph 7, he refers to it as a repast or a feast, and twice as sustenance. And then in the last sentence of paragraph 7, he repeats a phrase we hear in the long obligatory prayer, reminding us of the magnitude of this day. He says, the hidden secret and treasured mystery hath been revealed. Until now it hadn't been. And then he says, whosoever seeketh me shall behold me. So that's the momentousness of this day. But then he says that the tongues of thy creatures are powerless to extol this day. And therefore he introduces the manifestations of God of the past to extol it. So we get this amazing procession, if you will. This is section 2, paragraphs 9 through 17. We get this procession of the manifestations of God In tablet 10, in the culmination and resolution of that tablet, we had this procession of the names of God, which we referred to as the heroes of this day. And now we're getting a similar procession of the manifestations of God. And in paragraph 9, Muhammad appears. Jesus is the only one that gets more than one paragraph, and he gets 6, paragraphs 10 through 15. And Jesus addresses 5 different groups in each of these paragraphs. He addresses, O Concourse of creation. So all of creation he's addressing about this day. In fact, this is how Baha'u'llah says it. The Spirit proclaimed from the midmost heart of heaven. So Baha'u'llah always refers to Jesus as the Spirit. O Concourse of creation, O priests in the next paragraph, O people of the gospel, which would mean all Christians, I would think. And then, O Concourse of divines. So perhaps, in addition to the priests, this is also the bishops and the pope. And then, in paragraph 15, O followers of the gospel, making reference to his own word. 4 quotes I'll read from these 6 paragraphs that are quite stunning. The last sentence of paragraph 11, Jesus says, referring to Baha'u'llah, "It is for his sake that I adorn the cross with my body, and then arose from the dead to perfect his remembrance amongst men. He who awaiteth another," I'm in paragraph 12, "he who awaiteth another when once he hath appeared is indeed in grievous error." Paragraph 13 now, he addresses the priests. "Still your pens, for the pen of glory hath spoken. Lay aside your books." So it's fascinating. We know in the Tablet of Ridvan that we discussed, number 8 in Days of Remembrance. Now that we call that the Tablet of Ridvan because that was the tablet that the Guardian translated that's in Gleanings. But now we have all these tablets of Ridvan. But in that tablet, the voice of God referred to Baha'u'llah as, "O most exalted pen." And in another tablet, he was referred to in tablet 10 as the supreme pen, because he's the revealer of the word of God in this day. So here now Jesus is telling his own priests to put aside their pens because the most exalted pen is writing. So he tells them to put aside their bells, their books, and their pens. And he says an amazing thing in paragraph 14 towards the end. You know, a Catholic holy day is the ascension of Jesus Christ. There are 6 Catholic holy days, and Jesus' ascension is one of them. So listen to what he says about that and about today. "I verily await his command," referring to Baha'u'llah. "I verily await his command, that by his leave I might descend into the world, even as I ascended from it. He verily hath the power to ordain whatsoever he pleaseth." Now we know from the Guardian's writings in the World Order of Baha'u'llah that Baha'u'llah has come in the station of the Father, and Jesus had come in the station of the Son. And so that's something worth meditating and for a long time contemplating. Then in paragraph 16, Moses appears in this procession of manifestations of God, lifting up his voice from the Sinai of our name, the Almighty. We've talked about key terms in the tablets, and the face and countenance of God being unveiled in this day has been symbolic of all the names and attributes of God being manifest and unveiled for us to reflect, so that we can in this day for the first time really be the image and likeness of God, as was said in the Bible that we all are. And Moses, we also said that the words reunion, because we're being reunited with our higher, the potential of being reunited with our highest self in this day. So the word reunion and nearness to God is possible. But because of the exile, and because of our exile from our true selves, the key term is remoteness and separation. Now Moses is going to reiterate these terms, remoteness and separation. Because if you recall that story in the book of Numbers in the Bible, in the Torah, Moses was prevented from entering the promised land. And the story goes that, and I think this is in Numbers chapter 20 in the Bible, the people were starving in the desert. But they were dying of thirst at this point. And so Moses goes into the tent where he would pray, and he beseeches God to allow them to have water. And so the voice of God tells Moses to speak with the word of God to the rock. And Moses goes out there, and the people have been rebellious. They've been quite stiff-necked, as they say in the Bible. And Moses hits the rock twice with his stick. And the water does gush forth, but because of this sort of preference, in my understanding, of force, shall we say, as opposed to dependence upon the word of God, he's not allowed to enter the promised land. So that's my understanding of the separation he's referring to, and therefore why his reunion is all the more momentous and sweet in this day of Ridvan. Moses says, "Verily, O people, the day is come." This is paragraph 16. "This is he at whose separation I wept sore in the desert of longing, and for whose love I bewailed in the wilderness of ardent love. And when I purposed to enter the sanctuary of his nearness, he restrained me through the power of his sovereign might. Whereupon he addressed me, saying, Thou shalt never behold me, and returned me to the splendors of the lights of his mighty throne. Such was the longing with which I then was consumed, as I am powerless to describe. Thus have I informed you, O people, of him whose remoteness hath lacerated my heart, and who hath made me to quaff from the cup of separation. But lo, he hath now appeared with the power of truth, and unveiled to you his beauty. At every moment he proclaimeth, O concourse of creation, look ye and behold me. Blessed are your eyes for having beheld, and woe unto them that are have deprived themselves of this resplendent vision. So that's a very moving passage to me, given that history and historical time of Moses, and now his rejoicing at the coming of Baha'u'llah. Paragraph 17, the Bab appears, and he says, I was but a herald of his revelation. This is he in whose path I laid down my life. This is he for whose sake I revealed myself. It's quite moving. And then section 3 begins with paragraph 18 to 22. And this is Baha'u'llah praying for us. First reminding us that all the names of God have been revealed in this day. This is paragraph 18. A day whereon thou didst shed the splendor of thy most excellent names and most exalted attributes upon all created things can reflect this splendor in this day. So then he prays for us, and he does refer to us as the people of Baha. 3 times in this tablet we're referred to. Baha'u'llah prays for us to protect the people of Baha from the veils that might obscure us from this day, praying that we'll be congruent with this day and with our true selves. And he then defines the veils that keep people from seeing this day. It's the end of paragraph 20. He refers to self and passion have veiled from recognizing the manifestation. So he prays for us throughout these paragraphs, praying in paragraph 22, O Lord, aid them to abide by that which thou hast revealed in thy book. So all the manifestations of God are calling out to us on this Ridvan about this day. And we have Baha'u'llah praying for us on this day.